Yes, my name is Michelle Minnick. I am one of the township supervisors here in Whitpain Township, and the other supervisor here this evening is Ken Wallman. Okay. So we want to thank you for coming. Before we get started, because I know you didn't come to listen to me speak all night, but I do want to make just a quick announcement and let everyone here be aware that there are going to be 2 upcoming public meetings for gathering input for a township-wide walkability study. So we'd love for you to join us. The first is going to be Tuesday, June 5th, and that'll be held here in this building from 6 to 7:30. And the second one will be on Wednesday, June 13th. That'll be down at Prophecy Creek Park at the Manor House there. There's no set real presentation per se, so you can come and go as you want. You'll be able to view maps. You'll be able to talk to township staff, officials, and consultants. So we really are looking for your input, and feel free to come whenever it's convenient for you on those 2 dates. So with that said, without further ado, I'm here to introduce to you our beloved Pennsylvania State Senator, who's always entertaining and very informative. Please join me in welcoming Dale.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you, first of all, Michelle. I remember when she was campaigning, and I was extremely enthusiastic about her. I knew she'd be a terrific supervisor. And I remember also Ken, who I have known since I was, I don't know, yay high. And when he first ran, it was the first person of his party in a long time to have a real shot. And you know, some of us were like, can he really win? But he worked hard and he did it, and he's been a terrific supervisor. And you know, it's great to see this quality of people getting into public service, because let's just say not everywhere in the government is full of quality people right now. So, and you can make of that what you will. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple things. And just to give you updates, and I'll take questions on any issues at all that you have. But there's a lot going on a number of important issues that I thought it would be worthwhile to at least mention. Let me talk briefly about the redistricting situation, the gerrymandering situation. Gerrymandering has been, to me, one of the most important issues that we have to deal with for a long time. I actually did a TED Talk on gerrymandering, which you can watch by going to YouTube and going Dalen TEDx, and you can watch it over and over. There's no limit on that. Just put it on a loop. But it's you know, everyone's familiar that we have to redraw the lines every 10 years to reflect population shifts. The problem is that the people in Pennsylvania, at least, who've been drawing the lines are the politicians who have to decide their districts. And you know, this is not a function of party. It's not even a function of individuals. You know, if you put me in a room and you told me to draw my district, and I can make my life easy or I can make it hard, you know, I bet I could find some rationale to make it easier. All right. So this is, you know, and Democrats do this in states where they control. It just so happens Republicans control the process here. So I'm going to talk about them in that context. But if there's any Republicans here, again, this is something no one's immune to. But it is a huge problem, because the theory of democracy is that we have elections that are sort of, at least occasionally, competitive, and that people get to change things if they don't like what's going on. And gerrymandering, which has become much more aggressive in recent years because of a number of things, including the computers that we use to do that, have made it so very few elections are competitive, deliberately. And so we've drawn these outlandish lines. I didn't bring my graphic, but everyone, I assume most people, because it was on the news a lot, have seen the 7th district, for example, the way it used to be. It's just obscene. And every one of those little dipsy doodles they do was to avoid an inconvenient neighborhood, okay? And so they draw the lines, and they make it so we know who's going to win almost every election well before the votes are cast. In the last redistricting at the congressional level, you know, there's 1 million more Democrats in the state. The Democrats in 2012, the first year after redistricting, got about 90,000 more votes statewide for Congress than the Republican candidates. There are 18 seats, but despite that, the Republicans have a 13-5 advantage. And they do that. There's several ways. There's a couple ways to gerrymander. There's cracking and packing. Cracking is when you take an inconvenient area and you divide it between districts, so it dilutes its power. One example of that was there was a woman named Kathy Dahlkemper who won a seat in Erie in 2006, and the Republicans were very upset about that. She was a Democrat, so when they redistricted it, they just cut Erie into 2 different districts. So that's the Democratic part of that district, so that would no longer happen. That's cracking. That is cracking. Packing is when you take every person you can find from the other party and stuff them into as few districts as possible, overwhelming districts. So for example, they took 5 Democrat districts, they made them overwhelmingly Democratic. Every Democrat they could find, they stuffed into those, so the Republicans could have the rest of the districts. That's happened here, where it was 13-5, happened in Ohio, where it was 13-4, happened in a bunch of states. And so nationwide, Democrats in 2012, for example, got 1.1 million more votes than the Republicans nationwide, but the Republicans had a 34-seat majority. And so this is a real problem. And there was a Supreme Court case out of Pennsylvania, because we're one of the worst states about gerrymandering, a number of years ago called Veith versus Jubileer, where the court essentially, there was 4-4. 4 justices said this is outrageous, it destroys democracy. 4 justices said it was fine, and Anthony Kennedy basically said, I don't like it, but I don't know what the standard is to tell if a district's gerrymandered or not. So I'm going to uphold the districts, but if a standard can come forward, I'll reconsider. Well, things take a long time. So 13 years later, this was 2004. 13 years later, 2017, it came to the Supreme Court again. First in a case called Gill versus Whitford out of Wisconsin, which came up with a standard. It was called the voter efficiency gap. It's way too detailed to explain tonight, but unless someone wants me to, I'll be happy to give it a try. But it is a standard, and I wanted to go see the Supreme Court argument because I've been following this issue so closely. So I went down there, and again, everyone is following Justice Kennedy. We already know how the other 8 justices are voting, right? And so, hi there. The questions Justice Kennedy asked, it's hard to believe he asked the questions he asked and would vote to uphold these lines. They were very aggressive. I thought the best question was, he said to the woman defending the lines in Wisconsin, would it be constitutional to say in a law that when drawing the lines, we have to help the Republican Party? And she said, well, no, that wouldn't be constitutional. He said, well, why is it constitutional to do the exact same thing for the exact same reason, just not say it in the law? You know, it's the same result. And, you know, it seemed like he wanted to do something. And then something else happened. The Supreme Court took a second gerrymandering case, which is kind of odd, out of Maryland. And the thought was that Chief Justice for court watchers, which is a group of people who never had dates before, but they were saying that Justice Roberts wanted to take a Democratic gerrymander to decide along with the Republican gerrymander, so it wouldn't look like the court was taking a partisan position. So then they took a third case. So there's 3 gerrymandering cases, all which will be decided by June 30th, probably in one big opinion. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens. The thinking is Roberts may vote with the majority if Kennedy votes, so it would be a 6-3 decision in exchange for that arrangement. Meanwhile, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, there was a bunch of other courts at the lower court level doing a bunch of different things. However, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court was the only court that do it under the state constitution. Because like North Carolina struck down their lines, but they did it under the federal constitution, and the Supreme Court said, no, you have to wait for us to decide. But this is under the state constitution, which is unique. Pennsylvania's the only state. And they threw out our lines. And they redrew lines. They gave us a chance to do it. We can't do it, of course, because we have divided government and we couldn't agree. And so they redrew the lines. Now we are having the elections in November under completely new lines, which will persist for 2018 and 2020. And then we redraw them again after the census in 2021. So it is, a lot of people are confused. They find themselves in congressional districts. They had no idea, you know, they're totally different people representing them now. In Whitpain, much of Whitpain doesn't even have a congressperson right now. You know, this will all be resolved in November. But it is a I try to simplify as much as I can, but a complicated situation where, to me, if the Supreme Court does the right thing, it will be among the most important decisions that they've made. It'll go up there with Brown versus Board of Education, and Plessy v. Ferguson before that, and Marbury versus Madison, and all of that. Just let me finish the sentence and I'll get there. But it is hugely important because our democracy, I think, is under attack in a variety of different ways, whether it's campaign finance, whether it's gerrymandering, whether it's procedural rules where even if you win an election, you can't pass anything, whether it's voter suppression. There's a lot going on right now, whether it's the undermining of the basic concept of democracy. It's really important that we get this right. Because the computers are only going to get better, politicians are only going to get more aggressive, and we're never going to have competitive elections unless we come up with a way to stop rigging the system to guarantee that our side always wins. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. The U.S. Supreme Court, State Supreme Court, could the decision from the U.S. Supreme Court impact the State Supreme Court map in any way?
It theoretically could. I don't think it will for this reason. Because the Supreme Court will set a standard. As long as we comply with that standard, we're okay. So the Supreme Court's not considering the Pennsylvania map specifically. So they're going to issue an opinion, and if someone thinks that we don't comport with that opinion, assuming that it sets standards, then they could file a lawsuit saying you're not doing that. But that'll be after, it won't be in time for 2018. We've already had our primaries, we already have candidates. Maybe in time for 2020. I don't think anyone really wants to change it for 2020 because...
Wondering about the downstream effect.
Yeah, but so it could have an impact. But I think that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, and I was intimately involved in this, drew lines that would, for example, meet the voter efficiency gap test. And right now, there's only one test, which is the same number of people. Baker versus Carr, for those lawyers here or people who love reading gerrymandering cases. But in Baker versus Carr, they said you have to have the same number of people in every district. That's the only thing we have to comply with. We don't even really have to comply with the Voting Rights Act anymore because they struck that down. So as long as if they set a new standard, as long as we comply with the new standard, that's it. Now the key thing is, so this is what's happening in Pennsylvania now. We have to decide how we're going to redraw these lines in 2021. That's better than how we've been doing it. At the congressional level, it's just a bill in Pennsylvania. House passes a bill, Senate passes a bill, governor signs a bill. When the same party controls everything, it's real easy. They just sit in a room. We are not invited in. We were not invited in 2011 when they did that, and they just drew the map the way they wanted. In the state legislature, it's a commission, but it's not really a very effective commission. It's the majority and minority leader of both houses, so it's 4 legislators, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. The deciding vote is the appointed by the Supreme Court, okay? Now, the Republicans controlled the Supreme Court in 2011. And so they appointed a very nice man, an octogenarian judge, and the judge was basically whatever the Republicans wanted, he gave them. I mean, just to tell you a story, for example, when they did the first meeting at the commission, each side brings a proposed map. And they gave the proposed maps, and the judge said, I'm voting for this map, the Republican map. Someone then whispered to him that you're supposed to adjourn the meeting, take the maps home, pretend you've read them, and then rule for the Republican map. Okay, so he adjourned the meeting and then went home and came back, and lo and behold, after careful consideration, voted for the Republican map. And so it was just, now what's changed is, and there was, for the first time in 308 years, 3 justices of the Supreme Court up at the same time in 2015, and the Democrats swept. So the Democrats will control the Supreme Court in the next redistricting, which is a nightmare for the Republicans at the state legislative level, because if we are as partisan as they've been, we can draw 26 safe Senate districts, 102 safe House districts, and take control. And so they've had an epiphany, all right, and they realize, maybe this system isn't fair after all, okay? But the bill they sent, so they passed a redistricting reform bill in the House, but it was so crazy So they removed the Supreme Court from, they're no longer part of it according to this bill, which is not law, but the House passed this bill. Supreme Court is no longer part of it. Instead, who better represents the will of the people than the legislature? So there will be say House and Senate, majority, minority, 2 of each party, 4, and then 2 more members voted on by the legislature, elected by the legislature, which just so happens to have overwhelming Republican majorities. Who knows who they'll pick? So anyway, there will be 6-4 Republican. Now that doesn't even pass the laugh test, right? So the Senate, we did something in the Judiciary Committee, which I'm co-chair of, which was different. We passed another bill, which is very complicated, but it's better than that. At least it would be fair. I have some problems with the bill because I think it's unworkable in some ways. Like, we have a commission of 11 people, and every one of them has to be confirmed by 2/3 of the vote. Which, we don't name bridges 2/3 of the vote. I mean, to do something as political as that, it's going to be very difficult. But we're working on trying to pass something. I have my own bill, which I think is the best bill, because I'm, a narcissist. But I will tell you that my bill defines compactness with a mathematical formula. It creates a commission that needs a supermajority and all this. So I think at the end of the day, we'll get something, because the Republicans cannot leave the situation as it is now. That's just untenable. They're going to lose control of the legislature if they do, or at least that's the perception. So that is an issue that is percolating. Just 2 weeks ago is when we passed the bill out of my committee, and it was unanimous, which is really weird. You never pass a political bill unanimously. So we'll see how that goes. That is, we're marching forward there. And then the other issue I wanted to talk, does anyone have a question about gerrymandering? And then I'll go, yes.
What's the name of your bill?
It's 528. Does anyone know, Zach? You know the number of the bill, my gerrymandering bill?
722.
What's that?
It's not 722.
It's not 722.
No, that's the.
That's the House bill.
That's the House bill.
It was 22.
22 is off.
Yeah, but I'm not good with bill
Phone
numbers.
number's 70.
But I'll get that to you, Mel. It is. But you can take a look at it. Common Cause called mine the best in the country when I introduced it. I introduced this in 2004. I've been trying to push this because ever since law school, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. When I saw and we've had all kinds of great stories about gerrymandering for those, again, who love gerrymandering lore like I do. So for example, do you remember a few years ago in Texas, they had divided government, so they drew lines. Then the Republicans took control 4 years later, and they were like, we don't like these lines. And the Constitution says you have to redraw them at least every 10 years, but doesn't say at most every 10 years. They're like, you know what, we're going to redraw them again in the middle of the decade. And the Democrats fled the state, so they couldn't have a quorum. Some of you may remember this. And Tom DeLay, and they tried to get the Democrats arrested, and it was a whole thing. But eventually, the Democrats couldn't stay out of the state forever, and so they wound up passing a bill that gave them 7 more seats.
243.
I'm sorry?
243.
243. Oh, she's good. Senate Bill 243, yes.
So maybe I missed this because I came in late, but is there still a chance, does the timetable still allow this to get voted on by it has to go as a constitutional amendment, is that correct? So is there still time for that to happen before 2020?
Yes, but it has to be by the end of June.
Right.
So
Do you think it's a realistic chance? Or
I think, the thing is, we can move we are like Procrustean, because I like to use my SAT words whenever I can. I don't even know what that means. But no, we don't move very quickly, okay? But
Is slowing up the whole thing in
But,
the House, isn't it?
so the thing is that we can move quickly when we want to. And again, the Republicans are facing a real problem here. However, they have a problem as well, because there's the gerrymandering bill, redistricting bills generally go to the state government committee in the House, and that is headed up by a Republican named Darrell Metcalf, who only will pass the bill that I described earlier, the 6-4 bill. He's a very, very partisan, angry guy, and he will not. So I don't know. This is going to be a very interesting 4 weeks on this issue in Pennsylvania. To be fair, sometimes the Democrats, while I say Republicans had an epiphany about how unfair the system is, frankly, some Democrats had the opposite epiphany. This isn't so bad after all, now that we control the process. I think we have to support real reform, even if it helps, even if the current system helps us in a given cycle, because otherwise we'll never get it done. And this is just too important to like be like, well, as long as I'm winning, I don't care. There's too much of that, I think, in state government right now, as it is. All right, let me give you an update also quickly on medical marijuana, which again, we've been working hard to get the program, it passed 2 years ago. We had the regulations issued. We have dispensaries and grow houses open. We have people buying product. We have whole plant, which has been approved. We have amazing, I just got to tell you, the results are, the studies are impressive that are coming out, but the results anecdotally are just breathtaking. We have one of the leading people who was one of the moms whose kid had a horrible seizure disorder, was seizing all the time, dozens of times a day, is almost completely seizure-free now, 99% seizure-free. We've had people who have chronic pain who are pain-free for the first time without opioids, and states that have a medical marijuana protocol have a 25% lower rate of opioid deaths. In Pennsylvania, we're heading towards 3,000 opioid deaths a year. That's 600-700 lives saved if we have the same percentage results. And there's some other things I want to do on the opioid crisis, which I'm happy to talk about. But so we're opening. I've gone to a lot of ribbon cuttings, and it's very exciting because not only is it going to help a lot of people medically, but it's a huge new industry. I go to the conferences around the country because I'm trying to do some things nationally on this issue, and I went to my first MJ Biz, that's a big marijuana conference. I went to my first one in Vegas like 7 or 8 years ago. It was like 70 people there. Last year it was 18,000 people. This year there'll be 20. There's all the different industries, aside from just the industry itself, all the ancillary industries, all the innovation in soil and lighting and fertilizer and clippers and tracking and testing and packaging and marketing and lighting and all these things that you never even think of. And so this is going to be a huge deal. There are some hiccups, as there always are when you have a major piece of legislation. We wrote in a research component to make Pennsylvania a leader in research. A court issued an injunction against that last week, so that's paused. There's always turf battles and stuff like that, and we're trying to work through that. But so far, in every metric, patients, doctors, caregivers, everything, we are way ahead of schedule, and it's things are going very well in that regard. Some of you may have seen some dispensaries. I know is there one in?
Meeting right at the near the Starbucks.
Yeah, that's the Alera. I went to that ribbon cutting, and there's one right near me in Upper Merion. There's one in Devon. They're all opening up. And if you need a doctor who's certified, they have to get certified. They have to take a 4-hour course, and they have to do some other things. Let me know. Our office can get you one if you need it. And it's been, again, for those who aren't familiar, it's been very effective for things like anything neurological. We have an endocannabinoid system in our body, which I don't know if there's any doctors here, but it is receptors built just for cannabis. And that's why it has such remarkable, not only neurological things like, spasticity and multiple sclerosis and epilepsy type of things and pain and things like that. But glaucoma. Glaucoma. That was one of the first things, glaucoma. There was recently a study out of Harvard that people who smoke marijuana are thinner and they metabolize sugar at 17% more efficient rate. And there's tests going on that. So it could be helpful in diabetes. That we have people who are in, not only it helps with cancer in that it helps you tolerate chemotherapy and be able to eat and stuff like that. And it's an anti-nausea. What's that?
Marijuana?
Yeah. It's huge for cancer, and because it helps you stay on chemotherapy because it's an anti-nausea and an appetite stimulant. But beyond that, what's really interesting is we're seeing, and again, this is anecdotal so far. We have to get better research, but we're seeing actual tumor shrinkage and remission for people. So there's a lot. I think we're in the infancy of this, and it's going to be a huge deal. And we're just going to try to get through some of the early growing pains of any major thing. Yes.
What have you seen with the early adopters? How long does it take to get to the next step, which is recreational? What's happened with
Well, let me. That's a great question. That's my bill too. 528 is that? Anyway, I'll tell you. Pennsylvania is a little different because most states that have done recreational or what we call adult use in the business have done it through referendum. Pennsylvania does not have a law. We can't pass laws through referendum. They have to go through the legislature. So, legislators are timid creatures by nature, now recent polling puts. 2 recent polls in Pennsylvania put support for adult use at north of 60%. More polls like that will help. And we had an analysis done by the Appropriations Committee staff that, within 4 years, $1.5 billion of recurring revenue to the state coffers every year, not counting the 20 to 25,000 Pennsylvanians that we put into the criminal justice system every year. By the way, when you're in the criminal justice system, it's often a vortex. By the way, and it's also in New York, you may have seen the New York District Attorney just said they're not prosecuting these cases anymore. And one of the things he pointed to was black and white people have the same rate of marijuana use, but black people are arrested 8 times as often. And this is a way of taking young black people and putting them into the criminal justice system. Once you're in that system, there's a lot of consequences. You have to check a box when you apply for jobs. You can't work in certain professions, going forward. If you may get probation, but then if you don't report a change in phone number or something, you get, whatever, you get in a fight or whatever, then you're not only charged with that, you're violating probation and actually put in prison. So there are a lot of consequences of that. And it just costs so much money. It's just crazy how much money it's costing us. And the states, there are now, I think, 9 states that have adult use, including big ones like California, Nevada, Colorado, Massachusetts. And, there have been traffic accidents are down, domestic violence is down. Because, most people who've used this and alcohol will tell you that when you're drunk, you get aggressive and you want to do dumb things. When you're high, you have no interest in getting in a fight. That's like the last thing you want to do, okay? And so you don't want to go out and drive fast. You don't want to just do stuff like that. So there's a lot of societal benefits, I think. So we're pushing that, obviously, and we're going to try to put together a big press conference with law enforcement, because a lot of law enforcement supports this, with doctors, with sociologists, with people of both political parties to try to push this forward. Couple other quick issues I want to touch on. Criminal justice reform is something I'm working on. We had between 5,000 and 7,000 prisoners at the state level from 1940 to 1980, right? Pretty consistent range. 1980, we had a new philosophy, get tough on crime, all that. So we went from 5,000 to 7,000 to about 55,000, all right? 10 times as many people, which required building a couple dozen prisons. And, at the cost of hundreds of millions of dollars, and it destroys lives. And we're not any safer statistically than states and countries that have not done this. So I want to keep us safe. There are some people who definitely need to be in prison, and they should be there. But we have, I think, grossly overdone it. And even before we get to the severity of punishment, think of what you're spending pre-punishment. One of my bills is to eliminate cash bail for most cases. So the judge could still set bail, but you would go home. Even if you couldn't afford to pay the bail, it's just that if you don't show up for your hearing, you owe the court whatever it is, $5,000 or whatever it is. By the way, there's an excellent analysis of this that's very funny by John Oliver. I don't know if people watch John Oliver, but just go to YouTube, John Oliver bail, and he does a whole 20-minute explanation of it, much better than I could do. I don't actually believe that, but I'm told I need to work on my modesty, so I'm gonna. But anyway, right now, for example, 2/3 of the people in jail in Philadelphia are not there because they've been convicted of a crime. They're there because they can't make bail. And it's just a way of warehousing poor people. If I get arrested tonight for anything other than murder, I'm going to post bail and I'm going to go home. But if someone who had, a much lower income did that, they would go to jail for 6, 8, 12, 14, 20 months, waiting for trial. Their charges may be dropped. They may be acquitted, or they may be convicted, but sentenced to less than they've already served. Okay? Now, what happens to someone who spends a year in jail waiting for trial? They lose their job. They probably lose their house or their housing. They may lose their family. Okay? It's very difficult for them. It's very hard to get a job when they say, what have you been doing the last year? Well, I've been in jail. All right? And so it destroys lives, and it costs you between $40,000 and $45,000 per inmate per year to keep people who've not been convicted of any crime in jail. And so I would like to eliminate cash bail. And I would, the states that have done this and the other areas that have done this have the same rate of people showing up for trial or showing up for their hearing as we do. But we're paying a whole lot more for it in so many ways. There's a number of other criminal justice reform things we're pushing. We have a hearing on felony murder before the Judiciary Committee, my felony murder bill on Monday. I could talk about that. Civil asset forfeiture is something I'm trying to deal with, because that's, talk about due process. I mean, they come and they just take your stuff. They don't have to charge you with anything. They don't have to prove you did anything. They just said, we think your car is the instrumentality of drug use, okay? We're going to take your car. And by the way, some DA's offices, a quarter of their budget is because of civil asset forfeiture. They have an incentive to take your stuff. And then if you want your stuff back, you file a petition. And you say, now this has been changed a little bit by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Not enough, but it's been changed. You have to file a petition. You have to prove that you're an innocent owner. And we've seen cases where some grandmother had a small row home, and their son or her grandson, sold some pot out of the window, and they took her house. Okay, and that's just. And keep in mind, there's aside from the lack of due process, there's a really bad incentive here, which is that the people who decide to take your stuff are the ones who get to keep it. All right. That should not exist in our criminal justice system. If I were a judge and I said, Melanie, I said, you have violated this whatever law, I'm going to fine you $5,000, make the check out to Dalen Leach. You'd be like, what are you talking about? You don't, I'm like, yeah, I'm the judge. I'm going to keep your money. That's not how it should work. It's just not consistent with American values. So we're working on that, and we passed something called the Justice Reinvestment Act a few years ago, alternate sentencing. We're doing a lot of things to try to reduce the prison population in a safe way. I always talk about one other thing when I talk about criminal justice reform. It's interesting, so I'm not calling for this, I'm just saying it's interesting food for thought. Anyone here ever hear of Bastøy Prison? Bastøy Prison is a prison in, I believe, Norway, where they treat the prisoners.
Oh, I did hear about this.
What you did here? They treat the prisoners really well. They give them bungalows, flat screen TVs. They have a pool. They're in a big fence, but they're free within. They have a really cushy life, and people are like, my God, you're coddling these criminals. The only thing I would say is their recidivism rate is about 15%. Ours is about 60%. Okay. Now, why? What's the theory? The theory is that, and we're not justifying anything, but a lot of people are involved in crime because they've had difficult lives. They've been treated badly. They haven't had advantages. So we're going to take them, we're going to put them in jail, we're going to treat them badly for a couple more years, and we're going to send them back out. And it doesn't change the cycle at all. Whereas the people in Bastøy Prison, they like, this is how you can live this life all the time if you just stay on the straight and narrow, And they have murderers in there and armed robbers, and they have everything in there. But the people tend not to commit crimes when they get back out. So the question is, what do you want out of the criminal justice system? Do you want to get even with the criminal? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, retribution, or do you want a better person at the end of it who's safer and less of a threat to you and your family? that's an interesting penological question to ponder in terms of how we deal with the criminal justice system. Final thing I wanted to talk about was a big project. This is going to be my big project for the year. I try to have one big project a year. This is going to be it's food waste. 40% of the food in America is wasted. At a time when 25% of Americans' kids go to bed hungry at least once a year, and many, many families have food insecurity. And so I've been doing a lot of research. We had a great meeting with a bunch of people who are experts in this just yesterday, or was it yesterday? It all blurs together. For several hours to talk about solutions to this. And there's some really innovative things out there. We're still honing, and I still have a lot more people to meet, but broadly speaking, I'd like to, the bill would sort of, working on, would sort of require every restaurant, every supermarket, every catering company to have a plan to reduce their food waste to a certain percentage, and they would have to comply with that plan once it's approved. They would get, if they, let's say they had eliminated their food waste by 50%, that was their plan and that was what was required. If they eliminated it by 70%, if they did better, they would get tax credits as an incentive for doing that. And the plan could be like, you know, we have an arrangement with this food bank, we have an arrangement with this farm to turn things into animal feed. You know, there's all kinds of things like that that we can do to help reduce food waste. That would save, you know, would be huge and would save the government a lot of money on food programs, and it would, you know, it would be, you know, beneficial in a lot of ways. That's one idea. Another thing is we have to work on even something as simple as sell-by dates. You know, I buy fish at the market and it just has a date on it, like May 23rd. What does that mean? Does that mean I have to buy it by that day or use it? Will I die if I use it on the 24th? Or, you know, what does that mean? And it really, most people don't know what it means, and it usually doesn't, in many cases, it doesn't mean anything. And so we're trying to come up with a protocol where there'd be two dates, a sell by and a use by, or not safe after, or whatever, and try to reduce waste that way. One of the things I was proud of being involved in this year was a bill to stop food shaming, because I was food shamed a lot as a kid. I was in foster homes and so forth, and they, you know, I often didn't have money to buy lunch, and you know, they would say things to me. There was one case that we talked about when we were working on the bill which passed, became law, that a cafeteria worker wrote, not enough money in marker on the kid's arm, so when he went home his parents would see it. Or else they would say, when I was there, if you didn't have money, you just didn't eat. But a slight, I guess, improvement was that if you didn't have money, you didn't get the same lunch as everyone else. You got a cheese sandwich, right? But that's like, not only is it not as healthy, but it's, you know, everyone sees the kids who get the cheese sandwich, you know, and they're teased. It's just a terrible thing. So we've largely done away with that, but we've got to try to find a way to make food waste. This is a huge problem that we've got to try to find a way to solve, and we're going to be working on that for much of the rest of the year, and hopefully we'll be able to make it. This should be a bipartisan issue, you know. These days you have to look for bipartisan issues when you can find them, because, you know, we're not in control of everything or anything. Those are some of the things we're working on. I'd be happy to take questions on any other. I'm an old trial lawyer. I can talk for 2 minutes, 2 hours, doesn't make a difference to me. But I can, you know, I'd be happy to take questions on any other issue. The budget. We just passed Senate Bill 2, which is a voucher bill with helping hold vouchers for education, which I find really problematic. I oppose that bill. We just passed a bill which I argued on the floor against last week, which essentially makes several forms of protest illegal, and protest and picketing and things like that, because there's a pipeline going in and there's a lot of controversy about it, mostly in Chester and Delaware County. And, you know, the company that's putting it in does not enjoy the protesters. So they're now making it much harder to protest, which I think is bad for everybody, no matter where you stand on that issue, because there are other issues it could apply to. Yes?
Senator, what obstacles do you see to ultimately a reform of the pension plan for public employees that is closer to the type that me and my neighbors have? Because we're getting tired of self-funding and then having to fund like defined benefit plans as opposed to.
Well, there's a couple issues with it.
Most people have.
It's a complex issue. I'm going to do my best to explain it in a way that I understand it, and then hopefully others will as well. There are two basic kinds of pension plans. And I support pensions because I think it's important that people who work all their lives don't live in poverty at the end of their lives. And Social Security is never enough to keep you out of poverty. And so it's important that there be something like that. Now, there is something called a defined benefit plan, which means that you put money in every month and your employer puts money in every month. And at the end, you know how much you're getting. I get a statement. I have a defined benefit plan.
Good for you.
Yes. I get a statement.
I wish I had.
I wish you did too.
I had 30 years on it.
I didn't vote for that, by the way, because it was before I was there, but I'm going to cash the checks. But so every month I get a statement, like if you work until this date, this is how much money you'll get per month. Like it tells you that. Then there's a defined contribution plan, which doesn't guarantee you any benefits, but you put money in and you a certain amount of money, and then it's usually invested in the stock market or in a mutual fund, and however the market's doing at the time you retire is what your benefit is. There's a couple issues here. First of all, I think you'd probably agree. A defined benefit plan, if everyone had that, would be better because you can plan. You know what you're going to be able to spend.
Affordable.
But hold on.
It's not affordable. It's going to bankrupt the state.
Hold on.
Absolutely.
There is a couple issues here. We have a defined benefit plan in the state. Switching to a defined contribution plan is very difficult and expensive.
I did it 3 times in my career.
All right, well, let me
did it
finish.
3 times.
I can't speak to your
Don't say it's
situation.
difficult.
I'll tell you why let me explain why it's expensive and why it's difficult. Because, and why several states, Virginia and some others, have done it and then went back. Because when you have a defined benefit plan, I am paying in, and people who are I'm working, and people who are retired I am paying in to help fund their retirement. When you have a defined contribution plan, a 401k or whatever, you have an individual account. Your money goes into your account. It doesn't go to pay anyone else's account. Meanwhile, we have all these people in a defined benefit plan. If the funding for those plans goes away, where does that money come from?
I don't think it has to go away. You can say at a point in time, everybody that's hired that way, they get to keep it.
Yeah, no.
And in 30 years, that problem goes away.
Well, but
everybody hired from this day forward, this is the way it is.
No, you're right.
The industry's done it forever.
You're right. Well, let me explain why. Well, industry usually doesn't switch like that, but let me explain why. If I can just get my point out. This is why that's a difficult thing, because under the law, the defined benefit plan, you can change it as of today. You can't change it as of yesterday because it is a contract.
I said let them keep it.
All right, well, hold on. I know, but let me explain the consequences of that. So as of today, let's say we pass a law, it takes effect today. Defined contribution, but everyone else gets their defined benefit because if we don't pay them, they can sue us and they'll win, right? It's a contract. Okay, the problem is that the people who we hire today and are under the defined contribution plan aren't going to retire for 30 or 40 years. We don't start saving money for 30 or 40 years, okay? We don't save money tomorrow because we're not paying them retirement benefits tomorrow. Very few people who are hired today are retiring tomorrow, okay? They're retiring decades from now. In the meantime, we still have people who are getting defined benefit plans for those decades until the new people retire. But there is but the funding source, which is my contributions, are no longer going to pay those defined benefit plans, which means we have to have another source of money, okay? And that source of money is billions of dollars. And so we would have to have a separate tax or a separate other form of revenue to pay. Now, you're right. In 30 or 40 years, putting aside every other issue with, like, for example, if you retired in 2008 after the crash, you'd be screwed. Putting all those issues aside, we have a 30, 40-year problem, okay, that won't be resolved until then. And so I'm telling you, just as a matter of politics, politicians are not interested in creating problems for 40 years that will get better then. Because by 40 years, we're not going to be there, okay? I mean, most politicians in Harrisburg, they don't even think in 5-year terms, because in 5 years, they'll definitely be president of the United States by then. So, they won't have to worry about it, right? So we have this, you understand, I hope I'm articulating this right, but there is a mathematical problem with the switchover. There is suddenly a cliff of all our funding for all this that has to be paid goes away.
That cliff is there.
It's like you're bailing out of a Ponzi scheme.
It sort of is.
Exactly.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, but it is a fact. I mean,
But you either fix the problem in 30 years or you continue it for 200.
the problem is that how do we fix it for 30 years?
Just what he said.
No, but he didn't say. Where do we get the money? Do we raise a tax?
Is there an unfunded liability currently?
There's
Taxes always seem to be the answer. Let's just tax it. Let's just tax
Well,
it.
no, if you don't
Why
like the answer, tell me the answer that you like.
Why don't we generate revenue? Why don't we make a business? Why don't we start creating revenue rather than just the answer always be, let's tax?
No, I'm for creating revenue. I mean, we spent a
would be
lot of time
great.
trying to do that, but you can't assume uninterrupted astronomical levels of growth that will be necessary to fund this problem. And unlike the federal government, because what the federal government does, they just go into debt, okay? But we can't do that. We can't print money, and we have a constitutional requirement that we have a balanced budget every year. So if we go to a defined contribution plan and suddenly for this year we have a $2 billion hole in the budget to pay the defined benefits, where does that $2 billion come from? We can't just wish growth, because a lot of growth is based on national economic conditions that we can't control. We can do some things. For example, I mentioned cannabis. That will generate a lot of revenue. But
How about the gaming industry?
the game industry,
Slick Eddie promised we were going to get all this money, we were going to reduce our taxes. What happened? We didn't see penny one of that.
well, it did reduce. It went to property taxes exclusively.
Well, mine's double what it was. 2
I
years
can't
ago.
speak to that because you're a school district. I live in Upper Marion. We have the lowest property taxes in the state. That's the mall. I didn't build the mall. Not my fault. But what I will say is that the gaming industry did create a revenue stream. It went to property taxes. It eliminated property taxes for some people who were paying low property taxes to begin with in other parts of the state. And it still goes to property taxes, although we've rated it several times since. I'm not for rating it, and I voted against those budgets. But what I will say is there's so much competition. Let's say we had $1 billion tomorrow just handed to us, free. Okay? Do you know how many different things that really legitimate, heart-tugging things, whether it's tax cuts? Some people want tax cuts. Some people think we need to put more into infrastructure. Our infrastructure, we have the most unsafe bridges of any state in the country. We're supposed to have expanded 202 like they did down where I live up here by now. Okay, but everything keeps getting pushed back. The tip, as they call it, keeps getting pushed back year after year because we don't have enough money. We did pass a gas tax to pay for infrastructure. Taxes that seem to go directly for things, specific things, seem to be more palatable. But, education, there was something called...
Why it's now over $3 a gallon?
I'm sorry?
Is that why it's now over $3 a gallon?
Well, it's interesting because when we passed the gas tax, it was at a low point. It was like almost under $2. And so it went up,
2.5 since last year.
Yeah, right. And now it's gone up. It's not gone up because of the gas tax. It's gone because the gas tax didn't change in the last 2 years. It's gone up for a lot of things, but it is part of it. Yes, you're paying more for gas than you would otherwise if we didn't have the gas tax. But if we didn't have the gas tax, there's no, we don't have any money to fix our infrastructure. And keep in mind, infrastructure is roads and bridges, but not just that. It's the grid. It is pipes. We have communities in Pennsylvania where the pipes are as dangerous as they were in Flint, Michigan. Okay, because we haven't kept up on fixing them. It's a sinkhole remediation. It's acid mine remediation. There's all kinds of demands on this money. So all I'm saying is it's hard to just, when you sit down and you actually try to balance a budget, saying, let's create a $2 billion problem this year in addition to the problems we already have, because in 35 years, when the people we hire tomorrow start retiring, we'll start saving some money. I understand the logic of that, but as a practical matter, when you're trying to balance this year's budget, it's very difficult. It's very easy to say, we're not going to do that. Now, we did just pass a hybrid for people going forward, okay, because it would still maintain some revenue stream. You can get a hybrid defined benefit, defined contribution plan. And, you know, we did some other things in the bill, but we're trying, but it's not an easy solution mathematically. It's all I'm saying. Kenny.
Would you say that the PSERS is a big issue with the school tax? I mean, and that's basically, I think, what Tom, the same type of issue that Tom's talking about would be PSERS?
Well, PSERS, no, well, I mean, the school tax, but I mean, the property tax, which is almost 90% goes to schools. I mean, there's some that goes to the county and some that but one of the big drivers, of course, is, and this is another problem, the state, because people demand, you know, no taxes, or cut taxes, and cut. All right, keep in mind, much of the state budget we can't cut by law. It's either contractually obligated, or it's federally required, or it's required by state law. Or just practicality, like you can't, unless you close prisons, you can't reduce the prison budget, for example. So we have a situation where people have, you know, people want lower taxes at the state level. So only about 40% of the budget is discretionary. So we have to keep cutting whenever we cut from the same 40%. That includes schools. That includes the state's share of schools. Pennsylvania, at 35% of the total cost of education, is, I think, the second lowest in the country in the amount of money we put into our public schools. What does that mean? That means when the Wissahickon School Board gets together, they're not getting as much money from the state as they used to or as they need, so they have to raise property taxes. I mean, it comes from somewhere, you know? So all of this is on top of what they call the costing out study, which they did a few years ago, which shows that, which determined that we're underfunding public schools at the time by, I think, $2.6 billion a year, and it's more now. So we're underfunding schools. We're getting pressure to cut taxes and thus education funding at the state level, and then the local property taxes are getting pressure to raise, to go up. So this is like a balloon. You keep squeezing it, and it keeps coming out in other areas. It's hard. Now, it was easier in the 90s, because in the 90s, we had this great economy, and in a great economy, the demand for government services goes down, revenue goes up because incomes go up, and, you know, it was easy then. All you did was figure out what we do with our surplus. But we're not there now. And we have nothing but very difficult budgets, and it's very difficult to get any. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit for revenue. It's not just the cannabis. We have something called the Delaware loophole, where, you know, 70% of corporations in Pennsylvania don't pay the taxes they should pay, because they open a mailbox in Delaware and they say they're a Delaware corporation, even though they do business here. There are 32 states that have a Marcellus shale deposit, or a shale deposit. 31 of them have an statewide extraction tax. We are the only one that does not. You know, so, I mean, you may be for or against that. All I'm saying is it's a mathematical issue. Money has to come from somewhere. No one wants to raise this, no one wants to raise that, everyone wants to cut this and that. But I'm saying at the end of the day, there are consequences financially. You know, it's like you said, like we do. You know, you go to a lot more fancy restaurants and you don't get a raise, then you're going to be spending less on your wardrobe. I mean, it's just, you know. I'm sorry, did you have one in the back?
Yes, Mr. Leach, I just wanted to comment on what you said earlier, but just right now, the Marcellus shale extraction tax, it wouldn't be very much because they're not extracting any right now because there's such a glut of natural gas. So that revenue source would kind of be pretty shaky right now. But as my main point is, you mentioned Lower Merion has the lowest school district.
Upper Merion has the lowest.
Upper Merion, excuse me. And the reason for that is the retail mall, Lockheed Martin, General Electric, and they're there because of state and federal projects, the 202, 422, that everybody in this Commonwealth paid for. Mm-hmm. Okay. One thing I liked about Governor Wolf is that he wanted to eliminate, I hope it was residential property tax. I don't want Merck not paying property tax, but residential property tax. He wanted to do increased progressive income tax, which I completely disagree with. But if we're going to educate our children and pay for that, it should all be equal footing. So every school district should spend the exact same amount on each student and an extra amount for each special ed student that is registered there. It's just not fair that Philadelphia spends, I think, the least amount compared to Upper Merion School District or Wissahickon. It's just not fair. And what do they do in Philadelphia? They move out here. And since I've been a resident here since 67, or 65, I mean, the amount of traffic and it takes me forever to get to places that it didn't, okay? And my taxes keep going up because of more services are needed. I've been at either my father or myself, I bought the house from the family surviving members, been paying taxes on the same domicile for 51 years. There should be a cap on that. If you're in the same domicile, you know, after maybe 25 years. None of us went to public school, except for me. I went to Penn State University. But other than that, none of my 10 brothers and sisters went to public school, okay? And I'm still paying property tax on that same thing. So, you know, you might hear that we just want tax cuts. We want fairness in our taxes.
Well, let me say, what's your name?
Patrick.
Patrick. Just first name's fine. All right, there's a lot to unpack there. Let me work on that. Just keep an eye on the time for the thing. I have to be in Philly tonight for another thing. But there's a lot to unpack there. Let me work on that. First of all, paying taxes even though you didn't go to school or public school or you didn't have kids to go into public school. Two things. Only 15% of people have kids in public school at a given time. And if they were the only ones paying for it, it wouldn't be public school, it would be private school. It would be, you know, $30,000 a year tuition because it's only by everyone paying that it's, you know, affordable for that we can offer that. And, you know, I think there's a benefit. I mean, every time you go to an auto mechanic or a doctor or a lawyer or a, you know, whatever, you're benefiting from someone you paid to educate. So I think it's good to have educated people in our society. And even if we didn't, I don't send my kids to public school, but I happily pay my public school, my property tax. I don't support I wish it wasn't the property tax. I don't like the property tax as a way of funding education. I don't like local taxes generally because the areas of greatest need are the areas of fewest resources, and they, you know, there's all kinds of disparities. But I'm happy to pay taxes for public schools even though I don't use them because I see the value of it for society and the consequences of not having that for society. Number one. Number two, the problem with your solution, as I understand it, and correct me if I misunderstood it, which happens all the time, is that you think everyone, whether you live in Philadelphia or Upper Merion or Forest County or wherever, should pay X number of dollars towards the school. Is that roughly it?
I think the expenditure per student
should be the same from the state level. This is the problem with that. The problem with that is that the state's supposed to be an equalizer. And what I mean by that is there are some areas that are very poor and they can't, you know, they don't have a local property tax base sufficient to fund a school. So for example, I represent Lower Merion. Lower Merion gets very little money from the state because they have a huge tax base. Their houses are worth ridiculous amounts of money. They pay a lot of money in property taxes, whether they're happy about it or not. And they don't need that much money from the state. Whereas the school, forget Philadelphia, let's take Delaware County, Chester Upland School Districts, one of the poorest in the state. They can raise their property taxes to 300% of the value of the house every year, and it's still not going to be enough because it's just not feasible. And so then you will have a even greater disparity in the quality of education depending where you live than you have now. The state, and they failed at this, but they're supposed to be the great equalizer and have a minimum budget for everyone. Then, you know, what they call a foundation budget. If they have a foundation budget and everyone has a decent education, if Lower Merion or Radnor wants to spend more of their own money and build a big fountains with cherubs or whatever, they can do that. But at the very least, everyone should have. It's very hard to learn computers if you don't have computers in your school. It's very hard to learn, about smart boards when there's no smart boards. It's hard to learn anything when there's 40 kids in a class, when there's not basic security, when kids are coming to school without basic nutrition. So if we want every kid to succeed, and by the way, it's no bargain. If we just skimp on that and we don't provide kids with a decent education, a decent opportunity, I don't know what we expect of them later in life, but we're going to pay for it one way or another. An increased prison cost, and increased remedial education cost, and lost labor productivity. You make $1.5 million more on a lifetime on average if you have a bachelor's degree than if you have a high school degree. So if we don't give people an opportunity, that's a lot of taxes they're not going to be paying, and a lot of contribution to society they're not going to be making. So I think investments in education are worth it. And I don't think you can just say everyone should pay the same, because not everyone can pay the same. And that's why, I like the idea of an income tax replacing a property tax. I get emails sometimes, we would like you to eliminate the property tax, and I'll write, well, what would you like to replace it with? And they're like, what do you mean replace it? I just want you to eliminate it. And it doesn't work like that. It raises $11 billion a year for education that has to come from somewhere. All I'm saying is, I understand these are hard. Easy problems are solved. These are hard problems. How do you deal with this resources? And I'm not trying to be partisan here, but I will tell you, we're at a period, someone told me yesterday, one of the experts at our food thing, that we had largely solved hunger by the end of the 70s. Very few people went hungry in America. And then we had a different philosophy come in, and hunger just skyrocketed. And now we're at a point, again in our history, we are eliminating or dramatically scaling back and stigmatizing and doing everything we can to hurt programs that help people survive. And so if we're cutting food stamps, we're cutting Medicaid, we're cutting all these things, home heating oil assistance, whatever it is, if we're cutting all that, that's going to result in a lot of consequences. And at the state level, if we're just indifferent to that, eventually society starts unraveling. If people don't have the basics and other people are living in great affluence, there's a lot of unrest. It's just not healthy. We now have so much food insecurity that we didn't have before because we thought we were saving a few bucks. But even things as basic as brain structure is affected by nutrition when you're young. So I just think that we have to be thoughtful about this. They're not easy. They're not politically easy decisions. But I think that it's important. I will, Patrick. Let me take just because I want to get a couple. What time is it? 7:10. Great. 7:30 after. But I want to take a couple of people who haven't asked anything. Then I'm happy to come back. Yes, and then yes.
One major thing. You said over here, gun control.
Oh, I can talk about that.
That's major.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Gun. First of all, let me say a few things.
I got some ideas.
Good. I'd love to hear them. But let me say a few general things about gun issues. First of all, and I studied the Constitution a great deal in law school, practiced constitutional law, named my firstborn after my favorite Supreme Court justice, so I follow this stuff, and there is no constitutional right that's absolute. The First Amendment is one of the more unambiguously drafted parts of the Constitution. Congress shall make no law, for example, bridging the freedom of speech. But there's all kinds of laws that abridge the freedom of speech that are approved by the courts. Obviously, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't, something called fighting words. You can't incite things. You can't lie in advertising. You can't commit defamation. There's all kinds of, you can't reveal secrets if you work for the CIA. There's all kinds of speech laws that have been upheld. Well, that's a different issue. But you know what I'm saying? So in other words, the Constitution is not absolute. The Second Amendment, and we have a long debate about because it's a weirdly worded amendment. I think everyone agrees on that. But the Second Amendment, at the very least, lets us know Heller has been decided. And Heller said there's an individual right to gun ownership. It was controversial, but that's been decided. But that doesn't mean anyone can carry any kind of weapon they want anywhere they want. Like if I carry a fully automatic machine gun into an elementary school, I think that's a problem, okay? And I think that we can regulate that because a lot of the speech restrictions are based on public safety. I have a right to hold up a sign saying U.S. out of Afghanistan, but I can't do it in the passing lane of the turnpike, okay? Because it's dangerous. So that's number one. Constitution allows reasonable restrictions. Number two, it is untrue. It is a lie told by the NRA that because every time there's any restriction proposed, they want to take your guns away. There is no mainstream politician, certainly not me, certainly not anyone else I know, who wants to take everyone's gun away. If you have if you want to go hunting, I'm not a hunter, but if you want to go hunting, fine. If you want to protect your house from a burglar or whatever, that's fine. But there's a difference between that sort of weapon and a weapon which is designed to do one thing, which is kill a lot of people very quickly. Okay, that sort of weapon, I do not believe should be in civilian hands. And keep in mind, some of the I've shot all these because people would say you've never shot these. So I went to the police range and I shot an AR-15. I shot a Tommy gun. I shot everything. Okay, and these are weapons of mass destruction. There is no burglar. You can't hunt a pheasant with an AR-15. You won't have any pheasant stuff left. Okay, and so.
It's a military weapon.
It's a military weapon for the military. And this idea that, well, we're going to stop tyranny is just crazy. I mean, think about this. If you are like, if that's your position is if you see something that you consider to be tyrannical, and that can include like Obamacare or environmental regulations, you can just start shooting people, all right? And also, if we ever did get into a situation where there's a real tyrant, your AR-15 is not going to do you much good. They can take you out with a push of a button 100 miles away. So, I mean, all that's just, we don't need a society, we can't have a society where people are walking around with these weapons of mass destruction. So, this is what I support. I support limiting magazine size because often mass shootings are stopped when the guy runs out of bullets. There's a drum you can buy with 100 bullets. Why do you need 100 bullets? Unless you want to kill a lot of people. Okay, let's limit it to 8, whatever it is. I have my bill now I'm pushing is the red flag legislation because so many times you see a school shooting or a mall shooting and they always have these people, these neighbors on who are like, oh yeah, he used to talk all the time about wanting to blow up a bunch of people. I'm like, why the hell didn't someone do something about that? So my bill would give standing to any citizen to go to before a court and say, hey, this neighbor of mine, do you know the guy who killed all those kids at Parkland in Florida? He had on his Facebook page he wanted to be a professional school shooter. Maybe someone should have talked to him. Maybe someone should have separated him from his guns until we figured out what was wrong with him, if he needed help, etc. My bill has no criminal penalties, no fines. You just get your guns taken away until the court can decide, like, you need to stop drinking, you need treatment for this, or whatever it is. Or maybe you were just kidding and it was a dumb joke and you're not a danger.
The Parkland shooter was reported twice to the FBI. They dropped the ball.
They dropped the ball
never
too.
investigated it,
But
and the shooting happened.
my bill would address that because my bill would not require, right now you go to the FBI, you tell some guy or some woman and they hope they do something. My bill would allow you to file a petition with the court. The court would have 5 days to set a hearing unless it was an emergency, in which case they would set a hearing immediately. It was like a PFA. So you would get before a judge really quickly and the judge would have the power to make a decision. It won't solve every problem, but if it stops, you know how many school shootings there have been just since, there's been like dozens since this year.
Since Columbine, just about every shooter has been on pharmaceutical mood-enhancing drugs.
Well, and that's a problem. And that's one of the things. If I'm a judge and you're before me because you've made threats, I'm going to say, what medications are you taking? And maybe we need to look at that. There's a lot of things, but no one wants to take away your gun.
I'm sure you do.
I don't.
You want to take away semi-automatic.
I want to take
modern sporting
right.
rifles.
I want to take away your hunting rifle. I want to take away the pistol that you have.
Semi-automatic modern sporting rifles. Some people call them AR-15s.
Yeah.
But there's a whole scores of guns that do have the same functionality.
Yeah, I would take those away
They
too.
don't look scary.
Well, technically, even a handgun then, because some of them have 15-round clips.
Well, I would limit the
Get
clips.
rid of these tens of millions Tens of millions.
I would, well, first of all,
Semi-automatic
I will
weapons.
tell you, first of all, you stop selling them because, and let me give you an
So then
example.
there's still 50
There,
million.
but there'll be less and less. Again, a lot of the people who've got to get them, they just go out and get them. Right now, there's no impediment. There is no barrier to getting one of these weapons. And that is a problem. And that's got to scare you. I mean, you've met people who should not have weapons, I'm guessing, in your life.
And they don't.
Okay,
So
well, a lot of people
let me ask you a
do.
specific question. 3 million people were declined for cause to get a weapon. They came in, they filled out an application, and they lied. Why aren't those people being prosecuted?
I'm for prosecuting them. You know who
They're
also?
not.
You know
3
who else?
million people, every state, universally, nobody gets prosecuted
you-
when they try to buy a gun illegally.
Oh, well, they should. Some do get prosecuted, not everyone, I guess. But for example, one of the bills I think would be really effective because people always say, well, you have to rely on the criminal to comply with the law, and the criminals aren't going to do that. One bill, for example, is, the red flag bill doesn't rely on the criminal, number one. Number two, 1 gun a month. Okay? Because straw purchasers are the biggest reason that people illegally get guns. They go in and buy 40 guns at a time and sell them on the street at a profit to people who could not otherwise get them. People with records, people with mental health issues, and juveniles, etc. So if you limited it to 1 gun a month, it's not very profitable anymore.
How many times did that result in
Hold on.
murder in Pennsylvania?
Hold
This is
on.
canard. That's a-
No, I'll tell you.
Nobody goes out and buys 40 guns at a time.
Oh no, absolutely they do. Absolutely. I'll send you.
That's triggering a flag
Give
somewhere.
my person your email. We'll send you the. We'll send you them.
Somebody say, well, wait, time out here.
Let me finish. Keep in mind also, if you can buy 1 gun a month, that applies to your lovely bride. So you can buy 2 guns a month as a family. In a year, you can buy 24 guns. In 10 years, you can buy 240 guns and invade a small country. This is not a radical plan to disarm America, okay? But it does stop the straw purchaser. They passed this. This was law in Virginia. It reduced by 2/3 the number of people, the number of guns traceable to Virginia found at crime scenes. Then they repealed it when the new governor won an election, and they repealed it. But 2/3 it reduced the number of people, the number of guns traceable to Virginia that were found at crime scenes. It seems like a perfectly reasonable thing. 1 gun a month. Well, you can't. And then I debated Darryl Metcalf on this. He goes, well, suppose I have 6 kids. Suppose I want to buy them all a gun for Christmas. I'm like, well, that sounds like a heartwarming holiday at the Metcalfs. But I'm like, I mean, first of all, plan ahead. Start buying in August, okay? I mean, for Christ's sake. Yes.
Darling, normally you're dealing with a normal mentality. This person does not have a normal mentality.
Which person?
The person who buys a gun, person who wants to shoot, normally, whether he's a hunter, whether he's a sharpshooter, whether he's whatever he is, he's normal,
Yeah, he's fine.
okay? The person who does 22 killings is not normal,
Right.
okay? The person who does, since January to present, 22 schools have been killed, plus 2 others. Teacher in Noble, Indiana, I saw on TV, on 525. Santa Fe, Texas was the other one. Two teachers plus 8 students killed 10 people. As he was shooting, he says, son of a gun, another one bites the dust. Okay? He's not normal. I sell insurance and mutual funds. It is easier to sell insurance than it is to buy a gun. Now, when you are dealing with an ISIS mentality, when you're dealing with a killer mentality, you're not dealing with a normal person. So, you're not dealing with a law person, you're dealing with a killer person.
Senator, I know
When I was
times.
in Vietnam,
Well, yeah. Let me say, because you mentioned you had a question, and then I'll.
Okay.
But let me just make sure I get everyone in before we go. Did you have just synopsize it in a question?
I will end this.
Okay.
When I was in Vietnam, when I was 25, when I was walking around, 3 guys came up to me, they want to do something. we're worried about a law. I either had an idea either to kill or be killed. I did what I had to do. My idea was to several things. Now, either to put signs all around schools and say, school is now protected by security guards who are, quote, optional, licensed to kill with tasers. This stops the idiot who comes walking around and says, I'm going to kill every son of a gun who kills.
All right, let me address that. One of the problems, I have no problem with security guards at schools. Let me say this. There are thousands and thousands of schools. It's an extremely expensive proposition.
Oh, yes.
And there have been some of the schools that have had mass shootings, had security guards, and malls and other things. The security guards are not a panacea.
57 or 427 Magnums.
Right. They're not a panacea. But I think the better solution, or at least an important solution, is making sure you do not want people who are violent for whatever reason to have weapons that can kill a lot of people quickly. We've seen, I mean, this is beyond dispute. We've seen over and over and over again what that means.
Victims. My idea is to be as prepared for the students and the faculty as they are for fire drills.
Mm-hmm.
Once a month you have a fire drill. You're prepared.
No, I get it. Let me just take you
You
real quick.
understand what I'm saying now?
I do. No, I do.
That's
Preparation
exactly
is
what
good.
I'm talking about.
Contingency
Okay?
plans are
The
good.
guy's walking around, uh-oh, we got another fire drill, but now he's real.
All right.
Now he's real.
So I would ask, I'm asking for your help, office help, of dealing with a quality of life issue we have in this township that was created a few years ago by the expansion of the turnpike, right? There's probably hundreds of homes in this township that can't open their windows anymore.
Because of the noise?
It's constant, it's all, right? It's terrible. There was a meeting about 2 years ago, a couple of people from your office were there. Kate Harper was there, she helped organize it, the Turnpike Commission came out. It was a nice conversation, but then they just left and went dead, went dark. And they basically said, there's nothing we can do. And Kate Harper was of no help after that.
Is this the sound walls? Is that what you'd like?
Yeah, so you basically got a concrete wall on one side that is now reflecting the noise in one way or the other, right? I live over a half mile, as the crow flies, from the turnpike. Over a half mile. I can't open my windows. I sleep with a white noise machine in my bedroom, right? All night long, because you just, the noise and the trucks and the air brakes and the rumble strips, it's brutal.
No, I can imagine. I hate traffic noise.
And there's technology they could have and can use now, sound absorbing walls instead of just concrete walls.
Let me ask you this, because when I last dealt with sound wall issues, they were like $1.5 million a mile. Is that, do you have a sense of the cost of that now? Has that come down, or?
I don't have
And this goes to the conversation we had earlier, right? I mean, about.
It's a self-funded organization, right, that I think is still paying a lot to the state budget, right, for other things. They can account for this money if they plan for it.
Who?
The Turnpike Commission.
The Turnpike Commission. I don't know. I will check. Let's get this gentleman's information and see what their budget situation is. I know they keep raising the tolls. I don't know if, because, there's a lot of miles of Turnpike and, I don't know. My guess is it's a money issue, right?
Well, it all comes down to money but also caring, right? They have to be on the hook to solve the problem.
Yeah.
It's not going to be solved next week. We understand that. But they have to be.
Or at least a plan, like, okay, we don't have the money this year, but 2021, we're putting in these walls. Something like that. Why don't we can convene a meeting and do that.
That'd be great.
Why don't we, let's get PennDOT there, let's get, of course, the state reps there, we don't want to make anyone mad, and see if we can find out, get at least a light at the end of the tunnel. No, it's horrible, I hate traffic noise, and I can imagine it's very stressful. Let's do a couple lightning round. Yes, sir, and then you.
You may have said this in the beginning, we came in late because we went to the library somehow for this meeting. I got it screwed up. Anyway, what?
That's where it was last time.
Yeah, it was last time at the library.
So, are you going to run again for office? Are you staying in office? Are
Yeah.
you running again for office?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Some of this
unless someone
got
offers me
loud
like a
enough in the middle of the
sitcom, or
situation.
if someone offers me a sitcom or something.
Right, I understand.
I always wanted to be the wacky neighbor.
Right. So you're running for state senator again, you're keeping.
2020.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
I want to thank you publicly for coming to the Plymouth Township Council meeting and speaking out in favor of an ordinance to protect LGBT people. And I don't know what's happening at the state level with regard to that. Perhaps you do.
Thank you for that. That's a labor of love with me. I introduced the only marriage equality bill in Pennsylvania history way before it was cool. I will tell you, at the state level, I've mentioned the name Metcalf a couple times. He represents Cranberry Township near Pittsburgh, et cetera. But he's the chair of the state government committee, and he is a rabid homophobe. And he will not allow anti-discrimination laws to move out of his committee. And I'm just going to say, again, elections have consequences. If he were no longer the chair of the state government committee, but were the majority chair of the state government committee, then it would move. But right now, the legislature is filled with opportunities to block things. It's much easier to block things than to move things. Moving things is sort of a miracle. And so he is the impediment to that passing. We're one of the few states, and the only northeastern state, that doesn't have an anti-discrimination law of any kind. And it's embarrassing. And I'm hoping that we get there soon. But as long as he's chair, he's not moving it.
In the meantime, Supervisor Minnick and I are going to work with residents to create our own anti-discrimination ordinance, much like they did in Plymouth just last month. And that was the 45th ordinance of its type in the Commonwealth. So it's not like Whitpain would be reinventing the wheel or would be the tip of the spear. There's already 45 non-discrimination ordinances, and it's only right. In our mission statement, we say that we protect the rights of all that live, work, and reside in Whitpain Township. We really don't, because in Whitpain Township, you can legally discriminate against a gay person. I think we need to either do one.
example, please?
What was that?
You can walk into an office and say, if I was a boss, I could walk into your office and you were an employee, I could say, I heard you were gay, you're fired.
Right.
Or if you came to rent an apartment from me, I could say, wait, who's that with you? That's your husband? I don't rent to people like you. That's perfectly legal in Whitpain.
So what we're going to do is work with the residents to create and pass
Or
our own
Whitpain.
anti-discrimination ordinance, and that is something Supervisor Minnick and I are working on.
And I thank you guys so much. Do you have a date for? I'll be happy to come and. All right, well, let me know. I'd love to be here for that. I've gone to all the ones in my district so far. That most of the and we're hopefully get all of them done. But it's you deserve a lot of credit for pushing that. I will tell you the concept. Once the law is passed, often discrimination stops. There have been a few enforcement actions, but very few. And just having the law there seems to have an effect, just like restaurants no longer tell African Americans they can't eat lunch there like they used to, because that's illegal. Most people will follow the law, so it should.
Well, you said it yourself. It's a low-risk, high-reward type of endeavor.
And it's good economics. I went to see Bill Gates speak one time, and he said, we don't move plants or headquarters, whatever it is, to places because of tax breaks. That's a myth. We move them because we can attract good employees. And that's about quality of life. That's about clean environment. It's about manageable traffic. That's about not having people feel they're going to be discriminated against. Quality of life issues are what drive economic development. And so, that will be really, I think, helpful. I think we do one or two more lightning rounds. Oh, yes, sir.
You were saying about economic development and also about the property taxes and school funding. Are you aware of HB 76?
Yeah, that's the property tax bill. This is the problem with that bill. I support replacing the property tax. I don't support 76 for a couple of reasons. Number one, the way it's structured, it doesn't raise the money. It doesn't raise. It has to be revenue neutral. If it's not
dollar for dollar replacement.
But the analysis that we have seen indicates that will not come to fruition. Beyond that, it relies too much on a sales tax, and I can't support that. And the reason I can't support that is because the sales tax is the most regressive tax we have. The sales tax is the higher, the poorer you are, the higher your tax rate. Because, for example, to give an extreme example, my friend Mr. Gates, we're close, he might eat at better restaurants, but he still is, if he spends, or I don't know, something taxable, he buys a really nice pair of pants that's $100, he'll pay $6 sales tax on that, 6% sales tax on $100, but that's only a 0.0000001% of his income. Whereas if I'm making minimum wage and I buy a pair of pants for $20 and I pay, what would that be? $1.20. That could be a much higher percentage of my income.
$1.26 now. You'll have to pay extra 6 cents.
Right. Okay. Right.
It's not going to break the bank.
Yeah. Well, no, but it is for poor people who are struggling every dollar. And you have to juxtapose that. You have to consider not only is the sales tax much more regressive and much higher as a rate of taxation for poor people or even middle income people, but we're doing this at a time we haven't raised the minimum wage in a dozen years. We haven't raised the tip minimum. Anyone know what the tip minimum wage is here? $2.83. It's $2.83 statewide. All right, $2.83 hasn't gone up in a quarter century. All right, and we just so. People so people have to live on tips, which they often don't get, especially in poor neighborhoods where people don't tip because they don't have money.
Okay, well, here's the thing.
But let me just say one more thing. And just this week, often these companies aren't even paying the workers the lousy wages they're entitled to. And the Supreme Court just ruled that you can no longer form class actions so you have to enforce wage collection laws individually. And if you're someone making $8, $9, you're never going to be able to do that. The whole purpose of the class action was to help people like that. And of course, the Supreme Court just did that. They're now, in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, going to strike down their ability to unionize largely for state workers. Every policy that's coming down is designed to make what is already the greatest wealth and income disparity in 100 years even greater. And at a certain point, I don't think it's sustainable for society. I mean, keep in mind, Eugene Debs was the socialist candidate, got 25% of the vote, in some states back when he ran for president because, things were, and they call Franklin Roosevelt the person who saved capitalism because, you can't just have people living in that much suffering. And I would say to the Koch brothers, who are putting $400 million of their own money into this year's election cycle, they've promised. How much is enough? They're doing to fight for tax cuts for them that are going to result in even less money to be able to go to people in need. And I'm just like, how much money is enough? I will tell you, and I'll conclude with this because I have to go and I know you have stuff to do too. But, it is, at a certain point, if I'm a billionaire in America, I have a really good gig. Like, I'm living pretty well. Like,
you're a politician.
Well, yeah, we don't get paid. We don't get paid like the Koch brothers do, or like for example, anyone who graduated law school with me is probably making 5 or 6 times.
Still, they get a lobbyist job.
Well, I've not been offered that. I will tell you. One thing about politicians, I'm just going to say this, we get paid a certain amount. We will never, ever get a raise. We get a cost of living increase for inflation. We will never get a raise. Our purchasing power will never increase. We can serve for 50 years. We'll never get a raise. If I graduated law school, I did pretty well. I get a job at a big firm. I'm already making 50% more than I make at that firm. And then 10 years later, I'm a partner. I'm making 7 figures. I'm still going to be, so it's not all gravy for us. But I will tell you this: if I'm a billionaire in America or a multimillionaire, I have a great gig. I would want.
Warren Buffett.
I'd be like Warren Buffett or other people. I would want like the masses to be happy. I wouldn't be like minimum wage, hell no. Collect what your employer owes you, no way. Like at a certain point, it becomes Dickensian, and like it'll create unrest. I want everyone to be happy. I'd want the minimum wage to be high enough that people are happy and they feel they can support their families because I got a great gig going. Why do we want to risk all this if you're the Koch brothers or people like that for yet more money which will never make any difference in your life? But the consequences, the social consequences of that will make a difference in your life. I've never understood the logic behind that. The sort of like endless desire for the wealthiest people to just get more and more. I just don't get it. Like, why? Who does that help? It doesn't even help them. Anyway, on that happy note, thank you all so much for coming. I'm very grateful. And I'm happy to, no, please sit down. So, I'm happy to continue this conversation. Anyone wants to, call me or email me, we're happy to talk about more. And I'll come back to Whitpain or Whitpain, and we have to work that out, soon. So thanks, guys.